And welcome to the FanDuel Punch-Out. I'm Big Italy 42 here talking about tonight's slate of action. We got a pretty good one for a Saturday night, 11 games on tap. And it's one of those nights where you almost wish you had more offenses to pay for because some viable, cheap options on the mound. Looking at some guys at the top here, though. We've got Corey Kluber at $11,700 against the Angels. Obviously, this is an Angels team that's been struggling. Guys like Trout, Pujols in particular. Both those guys subpar performances recently. So, obviously, Corey Kluber, your best pitcher on the slate, minus 140 favorite, 7.5 run total. But $11,700, I mean, he's probably your best cash game option. I just don't know that he's an absolute must for me. Some other guys I feel good about as well. John Lester is another interesting option. Outside of that implosion, I should say, against Detroit 2 starts ago, he's been tremendous recently. $10,600 for him. Facing off against the Dodgers in LA against Matt Latos. Obviously, you don't want to be facing this team on the road necessarily, but for him, it's a nice park shift because he doesn't have to pitch at Wrigley Field against some of these bigger bats. So, fortunately, it's a lefty matchup for him, so you do like that. But the Dodgers, still a pretty good team against lefties. 7-run total. This one essentially a pick'em. So, for that reason, I feel like he's more of a GPP play with this being a pick'em. Obviously, your cash game guys, you want to be able to get that win or feel good about getting the win. Right behind him is Sasha Iwakuma. Had a bad start last time out against Oakland. Uncharacteristic performance for him there. And I believe he had, 4 scoreless innings first, and then in the 5th, he just absolutely imploded. So before that, though, 4 tremendous starts in a row, at least 7 innings in each one, at least 6 strikeouts in each. So $8,700, I think he's a fine option, despite the park shift there to U.S. Cellular from Safeco Field. He's an okay option tonight because Jeff Samardzija on the other side has just not been particularly good recently. This one also will pick him, though, 7.5 run total. So for him, I mean, more of a tournament option, but same exact price. Jordan Zimmermann, I like him a great deal tonight. Doesn't have a ton of upside. Not a guy that strikes out a ton of batters. But what's really good about Jordan Zimmermann is he rarely has those bad outings. He's just about league average in every single way. A little bit better than league average in walk rate, 4.2%. Doesn't strike out a ton of guys, though, 19.2%. But he comes in as one of the guys that's been more consistent recently. And he's a huge favorite in this game, of course. Washington has a huge 4.5 run total. Miami just 3. Minus 240 favorite, 7.5 run total. So I think if you're paying mid-range, I think he's the guy you go with in your cash games. Seems like a safe bet to get the win with Tom Kohler on the other side. You expect to get some run support. Mike Fiers got an extra day off since his no-hitter against the Dodgers. He's a guy that I'll probably play in some tournaments at $8,500. He's a guy who was inconsistent there for a while, but has actually been pretty good over the past month. You're obviously not expecting performance anything like the one he had in his last game, obviously with the no-hitter. But I think he's an okay option. But for me, I really like J.A. Happ. Colorado, terrible against lefties. Did fairly well against Liriano last night, but Liriano is one of those guys we mentioned that had been struggling a little bit. So Happ has been very good over his last 2 starts. He went 6 innings against Arizona with just 3 Ks, but got the win. No earned runs there. Miami, 6 innings and 6 Ks, got the win. No earned runs there. And the time before that, against the Mets, 5 1/3, and got 7 strikeouts, only 1 earned run. So he's pitched very well. This is a good matchup for him. He's another one of those guys that does not miss a whole lot of bats. Not a big strikeout guy, 18.7%. Actually, even a lower swing strike rate than Jordan Zimmermann. But at $6,900, I think he's a fine option for cheap for your cash games if you don't want to pay up. I think he's definitely the best of those guys. And then you look down at the bargain bin where he does not belong. Luis Severino, $5,300. He's not been pitching deep into games, but he's been very consistent. Outside of subpar start against Cleveland, he's got 7, 9, and 6 strikeouts. 7 walks over his last 2 games, which obviously has been driving up his pitch count a little bit. But Yankees, once again, with a huge team total. He's a monster 200 favorite. Matt Whistler on the other side is awful against lefties. More on that in a minute. 7.5 run total. $5,300. I mean, I don't mind playing him in cash games either. So this is one of those nights where we can see a lot of different things. We can see guys are paying up for pitching. I don't mind paying down for pitching here tonight, though, either. So maybe those top-notch guys, maybe more reserved for tournaments. But, if you can fit a guy like Corey Kluber in there, then I think that's a fine spot for him, obviously, against a struggling team at home. Catcher options, Brian McCann, coming off a monster performance last night. Once again, going to be your top option at $3,400. Matt Whistler, I mentioned his struggles against lefties, and they are significant. 464 WOBA, 147 batters faced. Excuse me, he's allowed 45 hits, 9 home runs, just 12 strikeouts to 17 walks. The guy has gotten shelled by left-handed batters. That's not good for him facing the Yankees tonight. So Brian McCann sits atop my rankings once again. Other guys to consider, Jonathan Lucroy continues to hit the ball well, $3,200 for him against Kevius Sampson. Give him a look. I don't love his price tag, but I think he's a nice GPP option. Francisco Cervelli's the guy I'll be looking at a lot. The guy's been hitting left-handed pitching very well. Been very consistent recently. Not a ton of upside with him, but a guy who's a great cash game option at $2,700. And then as you're looking for some other guys, Miguel Montero continues to hit right-handed pitching well. Struggled over his past few starts, but had that torrid stretch there for a little while where he was just mashing the ball. I like him as a nice tournament option. Left-handed power at Dodger Stadium against Matt Latos. He's a fine option. And then your cheap guys here are going to be Stephen Vogt and Matt Wieters. Both guys just reserved for tournaments for me, but I think both guys viable options there too. First base, there's a lot of options as there always are. Paul Goldschmidt now homered in 2 of his last 3. Seems like his power, I wouldn't say disappeared, but he hadn't hit many home runs recently. But now up to 26 home runs, obviously $4,600 for him against Brooks. I mean, not a bad spot for him at all, especially at home. So got to like him. Joey Votto as a lefty against Matt Garza and his 365 WOBA allowed the lefties. Sign me up for that. Chris Davis, I mentioned this before. He has been very good against left-handed pitching, lefty-lefty matchups. 4,200. Martin Perez, not in a good spot. Baltimore tied with the Yankees, the Pirates, and the Nationals as the highest team total of the night at 4.5. So he's in a good spot there as well. Hard to look past Anthony Rizzo and Jose Brady, those power hitters. Really not trying to list everyone, but a lot of guys in good spots here tonight. Got Adam Lind at $3,500. We know he matches right-handed pitching. Kevius Sampson has had some struggles here this season with his consistency. And then as you're looking at cheaper guys, I love Greg Bird at $3,000. Mentioned the struggles with lefties for Matt Whistler. 5.5 points last night for him. Seems like Mark Teixeira is unlikely to be back in the lineup soon. They said they're going to have some further tests, so I can't imagine he plays tonight. So for that reason, Greg Bird, a great option. Other side of it, the only Atlanta guy you really ever consider, Freddie Freeman, homered last night, $3,000 against Severino. You don't love the matchup, but it's too cheap for price for a good hitter there. And then as you're looking at cheaper guys past that, I mean, there's so many good top options. I probably will not be dipping past most of these guys. So for me, sticking with these top options here, I don't really see much reason to dip down. You can look at a guy like Logan Morrison at $2,400 if you are going to pay down, but he's really the only option that I'm looking at cheap. Second base options, D. Gordon against Jordan Zimmerman. Zimmerman has been consistent, like I mentioned, but not great against left-handed batters. A little bit of struggles there this season. 337 WOBA allowed. So tournament only option though at his price at $4,100. Jose Altuve gets the very hittable Mike Pelfrey tonight. He's been a good cash game play. Hasn't shown a lot of upside, but we know it's there. So you got to like him. I love Jason Kipnis. He'll probably be the guy that I play. Garrett Richards is a fine pitcher in his own right. Actually been good against left-handed batters this year. 271 WOBA allowed, but I love Jason Kipnis in just about any matchup right now, especially at that price. Anthony Rendon, $3,500. Just 1 for 4 last night, but he's really started to turn it on after that weak stretch after his return from injury. Rougned Odor, if he's back tonight, you can target Ubaldo Jimenez with him, $3,600. I like that. And then cheaper options, I'm looking at Scooter Gennett at $2,200. Kevius Sampson, like I mentioned, has been having some struggles with lefties. Only 54 batters faced, so very small sample size, but 293 WOBA allowed. So Scooter, nice option there. If Aaron Hill's in the lineup, I like him as a cheap option as well. Nobody else that really stands out as a great play to me. Other guys all just GPP options for the most part. Third base options here, there are quite a few. Chris Bryant I like against Matt Latos, who has not been very good recently. I like Manny Machado against the lefty, and Perez mentioned that huge team total for Baltimore. I'm really not playing Nolan Arenado. He's just been awful recently. Now he's hitting righties better than lefties. Just not a route that I'll probably be taking tonight. You can look at Alex Rodriguez, but Matt Whistler, like I mentioned, big-time struggles with lefties, and he's actually been pretty good against right-handed batters. Much better, at least, I should say. A 304 WOBA allowed. So $3,500. He's a tournament option because they do have a huge team total, but I'd rather target the left-handed bats there. And then a little bit below him, Danny Valencia against Ulysse Chassin. And I think he's in a good spot. He's been hitting lefties and righties equally. Was the lefty masher. Now the guy's just mashing everybody. Got to love him. Another guy who's on fire right now, Brett Lawrie, Looking at him at $3,000. I mean, this guy's had some huge games recently. In fact, in his last 8 games, he has 5 games with at least 5.5 FanDuel points. So the guy's been mashing, always under the radar. Kyle Seager homered last night. He gets Jeff Samardzija tonight, who has had some struggles again with left-handed pitching. Left-handed batters, 342 WOBA allowed. I like my boy Lonnie Chisenhall. Continues to hit pretty well, $3,000. I like him as an option. Todd Frazier, I mean, it's hard to go with Todd Frazier. He's really been struggling recently, but his price at $2,800 just continues to be too cheap. Matt Garza has not been good against lefties or righties this season, so you like him. Same price, Aramis Ramirez, I think probably a better cash game play. $2,800 facing a lefty. And then Chase Headley had a big-time game last night. $2,600, switch hitter, obviously. Going to be hitting left-handed tonight against Matt Whistler. You got to like that. And then a guy who's really been turning on recently, Martin Prado. You prefer him against the lefty, but $2,600, he's actually been hitting the ball really well. So I think he's a good tournament option down there, cheap. And outside of that, you can look at Josh Harrison for $2,500. He's just a pretty good option. You don't know for sure if he'll be in the lineup. Obviously, a lot of crowding there at Pittsburgh, but if he is, you like him as a punt option. Shortstops here, Carlos Correa has sat out with some hamstring soreness. If he plays, you got to love him tonight, but not sure he will. I like Francisco Lindor, $3,600. The guy's been doing it all. I like him a lot. Jung Ho Kang's been mashing left-handed pitching, $3,500. And then Ketel Marte, another one of those guys that, I mean, you just don't love him because he struggled so much when he first came up, but had a real nice stretch there last week. Struggled over his past few games, but like I mentioned, I don't have much faith in Jeff Samardzija. He has not been good over the past few months, so I like him. If you want to go with Spencer's favorite, Eduardo Escobar, the guy continues to mash the ball at $3,100. You don't like the price, but you love the production, so I think he's certainly an option. And then as you're looking at cheaper options, I think your obvious guy here, he's going to be a tournament option, of course, because he usually bats about 7th or 8th, but Didi Gregorius now, 6 hits, 2 homers, 8 RBIs over his last 2 games. You're certainly not chasing that, but he's in a great spot being a lefty against Whistler. And this lineup, certainly I'm not expecting him to put up 15 runs again, but they should be able to play quite a few once again in this good matchup here. Outfield options, Bryce Harper continues to seem more like a cash game play than a tournament play, but the guy's been solid recently. $5,000 against Tom Kohler, who's been slightly below average against lefties, but not terrible. I think Andrew McCutchen, though, if you're paying up for one guy, is the guy you're going to want more often than not. Absolutely locked in. $5,000 gets a lefty and Chris Rusin, who, as we know, just not a very good pitcher. 357 WOBA allowed to righties this year. That's not going to get it done tonight against these Pirates. Also, considering his teammate Starling Marte, Gregory Polanco, even in the lefty-lefty matchup, he's in play for me. Other guys, you like Michael Brantley as a tournament option, but at $4,500, not a guy I'm going to be forcing in there. Kyle Schwarber as a lefty at Dodger Stadium with tons of power. $4,100. I like him as a tournament option as well. One of my favorite plays overall in the night, Justin Upton, $4,000. Gets Adam Morgan, who has just been terrible. 379 WOBA allowed, 12 home runs in just 47 innings pitched against right-handed batters this season. So Justin Upton, I imagine he'll probably be a popular play, but I absolutely love him tonight. Chasing some upside with Chris Davis, Baby Crush at $3,500. Think he's a fine play. All the Yankees lefties, as they always are in these great matchups here. Beltran, Ellsbury, Gardner. Take your pick. I like all of them. I mean, Gardner probably the better cash game play because he's the cheapest, but any of these guys in play for me as well. Cole Calhoun is really the only guy I'll play in a tournament against Corey Kluber. I'm really not trying to pick on Kluber, but if he does have one weakness, it is left-handed batters. Still pretty good against them. 316 WOBA allowed, but 9 home runs. So Cole Calhoun, if you want to chase that single bullet, if you're making a ton of tournaments, I don't mind going that way. Jason Worth, another one of those guys, Washington with that huge team total. He's in a fine spot. Adam Jones, looked like he was going to be out for a while, but came right back after smashing the wall. $3,500. I like him quite a bit as well. And then as you're looking for cheaper guys here, Franklin Gutierrez continues to smash the ball. We'll see if he's in the lineup against a righty, usually playing just against lefties. But, I mean, as hot as he is, got to think that maybe he gets himself some opportunities here also. And then an interesting guy here, if he's in the lineup, another Baltimore guy against the lefty. This guy killed left-handed pitching the last few seasons. Struggled at the beginning of the year, but starting to get it going. Steve Pearce at $2,500. If he's in the lineup, I love him as a tournament option there. And then looking at a few cheaper guys, Josh Reddick, Byron Buxton, and Seth Smith are my cheap value guys tonight. Like I said, I'll probably be paying down at pitching, at least in some spots. So not hard to fit some of these bigger bats in your lineup there. All right, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.